Messenger.
We made it.
Hello.
Hello there.
Hey, everybody. I was trying to record it on my end, but let me see. I don't think it's going to work. Well, I'll just send a copy, but I hope you're all doing wonderfully well. Oh, it's worked. We did it.
We did.
Magic. We did it. Yeah, I hope you're all doing wonderfully well. And welcome back. It's been a little wonderful journey. I feel like every episode in between me and Yuzi, it's like a whole lifetime that we live in between. But
Yeah, we shifted
yeah,
slightly.
it's been a weird one because everyone's celebrating the new year and the energy's there for the newness. I feel it. I feel like I'm getting organized, I'm getting aligned, I'm getting clear. But I also do feel in like deep hibernation, deep rest,
Definitely.
not a lot of energy, not a lot of motivation, even though the ideas are there, the inspiration's there. The actual physical motivation to do it is not so much. So I'm just finding a middle ground in between. But yeah, how have you been finding it? How have you been coping over these past few days?
This past few days, I want to say it's been a deep resting space. I have been taking action, but I feel like my winter was sided with each other between hibernation and me creating because that's
Hmm.
what I set out to do. So,
Hmm.
um, all the ideas are definitely there. I can feel the difference in last year to this year. Like there's definitely a big mark there.
Yeah.
Lots of feeling like there's opportunities going to be settling in, and also like that very uncomfortable unknown of, yeah, I don't know what that's going to look like, and I don't have to know right now. And also, I'm requiring lots of sleep, and also I don't want to go shopping. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm like that. I'm very much like that at the moment. I need lots of sleep, even though I'm not getting much. And I'm really stressed going food shopping. It's very overwhelming. It's an overwhelming thing. I feel like I'm going monthly at the moment.
yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah.
usually how I go too. I'm
Just,
like,
just honestly, the security guards following me around because I have a mountain of shopping coming out of my supermarket trolley, and I'm like, listen, I find it hard to go supermarket shopping, so I just come once a month. Okay, like this is what I do.
heck yeah.
Got to find what works for you, and then do the little trips in between to get the fresh food and like the baby milk and stuff. But you got to find the human rules, the things that work for us.
The human rolls.
Hmm.
All
But
right.
mm, I'm excited for today. We've got a plan. We've got an intention. We came with an intention for you guys. We've had some questions in, so we're excited. We're excited to get into like more of a detailed experience with you guys, connect closer with you guys. And again, any feedback, any questions, please don't be afraid to get in touch because that's what we like. We like to explore into the realms of the unknown. And sometimes there's only so many questions you can think of yourself. So it's really good to gain your insight and your opinions and, all that stuff in between. So yeah, grateful for those that did send in questions. And we're going to dive into there. We've got the topic of relationships, communication, and emotional safety. So that's what we're going to be diving into today. And we're going to have a follow up session next week as well on some of the aspects that we'll talk about today. So Z's got a great question that she's received that we're going to dive into first of all, I believe. So
Totally.
I'll let her share that.
All right. So, what do you feel is being asked of us of in relationships right now in the collective?
The question, it is a question that is actually a really deep question. And I think, like with anything, what an answer. There's multiple answers. And I think it's one
Perspective.
of them things that, it sounds like a cop-out answer, but it's genuinely not. And I think one of the main things that's being asked of relationships is vulnerability.
Mhm.
And that's not necessarily it is from each other, but mainly it's from yourself. So you need to ask yourself if you are prepared to be vulnerable right now. And this, I think what's really being asked is to reflect on, is this right for me? Whether it's the right person, the right timing, the right experience, it could be any of them things. And like me and Z were just chatting before we came on, I think there's a real need for new beginnings at the moment. So whether that's new beginnings in a whole new relationship, it's got to be scrapped and I need to work on myself to find a new relationship, whatever that might look like for you, or whether that's literally starting a new relationship with the person you're in. And so I use that term because I prefer it to a new beginning. I think that gets used a lot, and it's one of them that's not. It's just, it doesn't feel as solid as like a new relationship with each other. And I know that sounds silly and maybe different worded, but it's real. Like you have to physically change the relationship. That dynamic then programs them flows, them resentments, them energies, the past, the history, all of that is what is stopping that relationship from working. So if you actually want that to work with a partner you've been with for a long time, that doesn't mean you forget the memories and the history you've spent together. You're not a robot. You can't just press delete. But what you have to do is physically start as if you are in a new relationship. And when you feel that resentment and that energy come up, it's about checking it and not acting upon them old programs to create the new relationship. So, in a short answer, I would say we are being called to see if what we're experiencing right now is the right thing for us. And we're called to be very honest and very vulnerable with ourselves, and then in turn, vulnerable with the person that we're experiencing a relationship with.
I would definitely agree with that. And also just not in partnerships and any and all
Yeah.
relationships that I see coming
Mm.
through there. That was my big tick this last year, the amount of relationships that were like, yeah, no, this is not working for me. My body was very clear. This is not something that can continue. Um,
Yeah.
so mo the good majority of my friendships and even partners shifted out of last year really, really thickly.
Mhm.
And the ones that needed a new interface, and I'm going to say new interface here because it is a new beginning, but it's like I'm opening up to a deeper connection because I'm deciding that I want to be vulnerable and sovereign in this space.
Yeah.
Right. I
Yeah.
want to take off all my masks and everything that is creating a dissonance or a disharmony, knowing that I tried very hard to keep those relationships going for a period of time until it was absolutely, this is not working. So heading into
Mhm.
this year, after like making that shed, the question is, okay, how then do I want to show up in these relationships where I'm completely myself, completely unmasked, completely vulnerable, and do I have the ability to communicate when I'm having a situation, when I'm having something arise? When those frustrations do kind of bubble up, am I gonna,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna obviously push them away. If there's something that has in the past has occurred and it's obviously something that popped up within a friendship or a relationship, I'm gonna be like, hey, I'm noticing this, right? And
Mhm.
that takes me to a place of safety because I wasn't safe in prior relationships to do that. And I feel like that's what we're heading into is we're being asked, can we feel safe enough to do this in our bodies?
Yeah.
That's
And
it.
that's golden nugget right there. Can we feel safe enough to do this in our bodies? I'm really glad you brought that up, Z, because that is truly the theme. And so we're both having this conversation. We're both in partners, relationships with partners. We both have relationships. So
Mhm.
we want to clarify out when we're talking about these things. Obviously, I'm in a relationship. I'm a woman. I'm in very feminine energy, and I'm in a relationship with a man. And so, I very much have the perspective in my experience from feminine and masculine
Sure.
energies in a relationship. Not to say I don't have masculine traits. I definitely do, and I definitely have very masculine defense mechanisms. That's my instant go-to. So that's a whole thing I work through. But we'll talk a little bit about that later on. But that's there. But in the overall, it's definitely feminine, masculine energy in the generic. But I work with a lot of energy. Energy is energy. And so when I'm talking in this perspective, I just want to clarify out that if I go into the flow of like feminine energy, masculine energy, that's not necessarily limited to either man or woman. So as me and Zia spoke about many times before in these videos, you can be a woman that's more masculine in soul energy and presents more masculine physically, or even just energetically represents more. You could be a woman who's more in a feminine energy. You could be one who has half and switches in between. You could be a man that's mainly in your feminine energy. You could be a man mainly in your masculine energy. You could be a man that's in between both. That's not to say every human has aspects of both. Like I said, I have aspects of masculine energy. I'm not just this airy fairy feminine energy that just lives, but it's just to say predominantly the way my brain works, the way my nervous system works, the way my body receives things, the way my information is received, the way I react, the way I conversate. It's very based in the feminine aspect. My physical appearance is more physical feminine aspect. So I'm just, if I were on a scale, I guess I'm just leaning more to that scale. And so it's never like you're fully 100% or the other way. I guess I just wanted to clarify these terminologies out before we go deeper into talking about them, because there's so many different relationships, and I've got a beautiful friend that's in a same-sex relationship, and you can see the dynamics going on there between one more masculine energy, one more feminine energy, and they're both women. And so there's different energetic roles that have naturally slipped into. They're both parents now. They're both mums to this beautiful son. And you can see the natural energy just enveloped in there in terms of where they naturally have fallen into their own energy roles. And so I just wanted to humanize the words so that we all know when I'm talking about feminine and masculine, I'm not just talking about women and men. I'm talking about feminine and masculine energies. And so if you are a man with a feminine energy, a woman with a masculine, da da da, and you identify with what I'm saying, I'm not just limiting it to the gender experience. And just one more thing, this conversation also is not just for people that are in relationships or in a new relationship. It's also if you are single and your heart is now being open to the potential of relationships. This information is obviously receiving you for a reason, and it's obviously being shown to you to prepare your heart and your mind and body and soul for the experience of being more vulnerable, being more open, and being in a more safe relationship, potentially, as Z said, because 99% of us have experienced an unsafe relationship, whether it's parents, teachers, friends, relationships. We've experienced our nervous system not being held safely by other people around us for a majority of our lives. So it's not our natural instinct to feel safe in any relationship. And so this is a new experience for all of us. And so I just wanted to relate that out there to men, women, all of kinds, relationships, non-relationships. This video is meant to receive to you in an energetic way and what it feels right. So just take what you resonate with.
We're really saying is show up as you are. Doesn't matter what sexual orientation or identification that you want to come in. This information can hit you in the way that moves you in whatever direction or like allows you to open up into further deeper connections with self and
Yeah.
others. Ba-dum-bum.
Ba-bum. So yeah, love that answer to that question. It was a great first question. Thank you for sending that in. The question I've got here is where do people often confuse connection with attachment?
That's a thick one. What do you feel like attachment is for you?
That's a good question. Uno reverse. I'm not joking. It feels no, it's good. Attachment. I don't know. I think there can be healthy attachments. I think there can be unhealthy attachments. And I guess it's breaking down what that is. Like you can have an attachment. I have my nanny's wedding ring because she passed away last year. I'm struggling to get it off. So on my necklace, and then I have a lovely necklace I bought myself from the kids for Christmas. So, then things I have a little attachment to. I love them. They're cute. And especially my nanny's wedding ring. I have a deep attachment to that. It's a part of her, it's her energy. It's like a physical representation of her and my granddad as well. And so I love that I have that energy there attached to me. So I guess like if I were to just break it down in a physical form, I know that's not a relationship, but it's an attachment that I feel to an object. And so in a relationship, attachments compared to connection, I think it's important to break that down because I don't know if the attachment would be the right word to use in a relationship because you don't ever want to need a person. And I think that's really important. Like I met my partner at 11 years old. I was just telling Z actually at swimming baths. And now we're 28, and we've been together for like 15 years. So we've had many ups and downs and layers. And I think at one point there was definitely attachments there and like a need to be with this person, especially like when I was like 15. It felt like if we broke up, life would end. And then we broke up for like 2 months. And that's probably the best thing that happened to me in our relationship because it taught me that I don't need this person. I actually want to be with this person. And that shifted a huge lot for me. Like I don't have to be with this person because they're all I've ever known or they're the safest place I've experienced. Like I learned a lot through that breakup for 2 months. I learned that attachment is not great. Like when you're attached to something, again, if I lost this, I'd be heartbroken, but I'd live to see another day. And it's the same thing in a relationship. It has to have that concept of if I lost this relationship, you're allowed to be heartbroken. You're allowed to grieve it. You're allowed to be absolutely on the floor, grieving all the processes of it all. That's completely human. But what we're not allowed to do is feel like we can't exist without that person. And that's the difference. And I think that's how I define where do people confuse connection with attachment? Attachment is a need to be with someone rather than a choice because your souls and mind and body and spirit are aligned at that time.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think that's a deep question because if we go back to our natural native human nature, we need some sort of connection with each other. I found this out a really hard way because I went through my trauma and decided to separate myself from humans for a really long time and be in the mountains. And
Yeah.
my
And that's deep.
That's deep. It's deep.
Yeah.
I unraveled all my stuff there, and then my body was like obviously dying, and she's like, "Hey, just so you know, I actually do need I need
Yeah.
humans," and I had to really
Yeah.
accept that there is some sort of an attachment in a way that you could perceive it as a need, or you could perceive it as it's a natural format for humans to
Yes.
interact with each other and
Yes.
around each other to be healthy.
And that's a very, very valid point because sure, in 2020, I always thought, oh, I don't really like being out in people and then 2020 hit and there was not a soul to be seen.
Yep.
Whoa, I missed people. And I remember going back out again and being like, people, like feeling like there was just a set. And I spent lockdown with a lot of people. Like I was out in my allotment. We had a great place to publicly social distance so that we, was conforming to rules. We wasn't in a house, but we was all together outside having bonfires every night. So I actually did not go without that much human connection. But what I missed was like people in life, like watching people walk their dogs in the park and, eating dinner in a restaurant and seeing people holding hands. And like, I really just missed humanity. And I did not realize how much that was important to me. So I completely understand that. And in the same token as we shouldn't need someone, we are also built as humans to like desire companionship and desire a connection to experience life with someone. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just think we shouldn't form unhealthy attachments to a specific person or a specific relationship because it just gives too much power away from self.
And that's what I want to circle right there is the actual need for like the need for someone to exist, right?
Yeah.
To be by
Yeah.
someone to be, I do feel like that does give a sense of power away. And if we're looking at like textbook type of attachments where it's secure, avoidant, and
Hmm.
anxious, which I used to fly through all of those. I have just one. Um, it came to this separation with me knowing that I can always have myself, but what I want in my experience, what my body likes in this experience is to have deep connections that satisfy me so that I can keep going, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I came out of really, really unhealthy relationships, so
Yeah.
prior to the one that I have, very, very unhealthy, and that did reflect my own stuff that I needed to work through,
Hmm.
my own sovereignty,
Hmm.
taking my power back, and my trauma.
Yeah, and a reflection of, like you said, the choices, the people, the experiences, all of it. Like I recognize so much because it's difficult when you've been in a relationship since a child. You're not, and I think my parents separated when I was 4, and they've both got very conflictual or shut down communication styles. So it wasn't a great model for me for communication and healthy conflict and resolving conflict and things like that. And so as a child, being in a relationship, like a very deep relationship as a child, like I'd definitely say it was toxic at times, 100%. And anyone that knows me back then watching this would 100% agree. Like, oh God, we used to argue. It was bad. It was bad, and then them programs still exist. And it's like takes everything in the world to not go to that level of communication because it's just completely unhealthy for everyone involved. But yeah, like, oh, we've moved through so many layers of unhealthy energy, unhealthy attachments, reflections of our own shit, our own pain, our own protection, inability to sit with our own inner child, not being heard. But I would definitely say if I had to highlight any of the biggest issue in our relationship, even still now, would be communication. 100%. And I think that is something that we are yet to master as humans, as people, as a collective, me personally. I don't know. I just think it's one of them things that because you're so emotionally charged as a human being, and because the emotions rule the body, and when you're having conversations that are emotionally charged, it's just that's why I think we end up in this same loop because the emotions take over the rational, conscious
Right.
thought, and they take over, and you fall into old patterns, programs, defense, attack,
Sure.
all the same shit. And so it's really difficult to break that. And I would say it's very rare and I wouldn't necessarily always recommend it going through life through these different stages of awakening and being with someone else. Like, I would say that's definitely been a challenge because you are constantly being challenged to expand and grow and heal. And so you have to be working at a very similar pace to each other. Otherwise, you feel extremely disconnected. And there has been many times in our 15 years that we have become disconnected because we're at different places of the healing journey and different places of our as ascension journey too. You know, I'm sure he thought I was absolutely fucking mental for a good few years, you know, and so it just came back round as it does, you know, but definitely feel like there is like that needs to be spoken about because we're going through something so not normal in humanity, like a conscious awakening. This is not just like the standard textbook of relationships, like when people got together in 1930s or 40s, 50s, 60s, like it's not the same. Like we are being forced to expand and to grow, and we are literally becoming different versions of us every week, every year. And if you and your person are not working on a similar place and communicating where you're at and what you need from each other, it's very difficult to stay connected throughout them shifts.
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely massive. And really I want to go back and circle back to safety because really in my own experience why that didn't move its way through is because I felt unsafe to communicate. I felt
Yeah.
unsafe to be vulnerable enough. And when I did have vulnerabilities, in my cases, that wasn't taken, like I did that not in a safe place out of
Yeah,
trusting, which it wasn't.
exactly.
I took it the other direction, and then I was like, I'm not safe to tell anybody anything. And, I had to move through those patterns of trusting myself enough to know and differentiate what was a safe place and what wasn't.
I've been there, 100% been there. And I guess another thing is that when your nervous system's so expecting not a safe place, you go into that conversation with defense. And
Oh,
that defense can sometimes look like aggression or anger or an attack to that person. And then when that's been like a norm of communication, you expecting shutdown. So you going in with attack energy, not intentionally, but it being perceived that way. And then that person met with defensiveness or reactivity and then they're just being a shutdown. And so there's never any communication going on. And that I've experienced that myself for so many years. And it genuinely is soul exhausting because that your soul is just begging to be heard. And you just want to be heard.
that's
But
a,
also you have to take accountability for where you could be asking to be heard differently, you know? And
oh,
I really
yeah,
had to sit
yeah.
with both them things. And one of the questions we got asked, which is relevant to this, is what does it look like to listen without preparing a defense? And I thought that was really, really, really interesting because I've experienced this with my partner where I feel like every time I'm going to communicate my feelings, it's being met with, why are you attacking me? I haven't done anything wrong. And then like a shut down, that's not true, that's wrong, did it? And it just makes you feel so invalidated. And so like your pain's not valid and your emotions are not valid and like they're not real and then you feel like you're being gaslit and you're like no fuck this shit and so then you go in this whole cycle of defense and attack and that's been something I've really had to work with in terms of the main game changer was for me was not needing him to validate it and me going in there like I am allowed to feel this way regardless of how you feel about it.
Yep.
I am allowed these feelings. This is what these feelings are. And that really shifted the whole, it's not true, you can't, no, 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 because that was only happening because I was allowing that to happen. I was allowing my feelings to not be validated by allowing, even arguing it. Why are you even arguing it? That's how you feel. Why are you even justifying how you feel?
Right.
Simple, that's how you feel. And then I really changed again, I came at it softer and tried to communicate softer, but also came at it with a firm, this is my feelings and I am allowed to feel these feelings and nothing you can say is going to explain that that's not allowed. You know, it's still allowed, even all your explanations in the world and all your reasonings in the world, I'm still allowed to feel this way. And that really shifted a lot of things for me in communication. And I guess maybe shifted my need to be so defensive and reactive myself because I was validating them emotions without needing him to validate them for me.
Yeah, that's a beautiful space. Thanks for expressing that. I've also went through that dynamic before, and it's a rough one, especially
It is.
if you're very empathic and you're also mirroring the other person, and then your masks come out and your people pleaser comes out, and you're trying to like inflect that and work with it or try and fix it. And I also had to do that, but in the end, for me, it was I had a value situation. I need to value myself
Mhm.
enough to be like, yeah, no, I do value where I'm at and how I'm experiencing what I'm expressing, and that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you love me in that space either, and that's really another one too, where I was like, oh, you don't have to love
Yeah.
me. I already love myself in there.
Right.
So if you go, then you're gonna go. Okay, I'm gonna handle my own, and that really did shift the the paradigm for me.
It does. And because it's the removing the fear. It's
Totally.
removing the fear and that, like we were saying, the attachment, the codependency, the need. It's removing the need. Like,
Yeah.
I'd like to work this out with you. This is how I feel. These are my boundaries. Like, can we meet in the middle? Can we, this is where I'm at. Can you meet me here and we'll work together to grow? And if
Right.
not, then really, what else can you do? And that there does come a certain point when you get to that point, and whether you get there through, again, the safety piece. Okay,
Yeah.
there's only so much, like that person could be cooking and cleaning and doing all the jobs and all the materialistic things and all the gifts and everything. But are they able to hold any emotional safety for you?
Right.
Are you able to go on a hard day, on a day where you're crying your eyes out and you just need someone to just hold you? Again, no one's perfect. I'm not expecting them to fix it all every moment and be like, oh, I know exactly what to do in this moment. No, let's be real. Let's be a realist. That's another thing. Like, we've got to get rid of the ideologies that everything's got to be perfect. It's not true. But they can have emotional safety by asking you, what do you need right now from me? And you having the emotional vulnerability to be like, I just need you to hold me. I just need you. I need to talk it out. I need to go smash some plates outside. I don't know, whatever it is you need. You need to be held throughout that time and supported. And that could again be by friends, family. I'm not expecting it this just to be from a relationship, but emotional safety, I don't think people even understand the definition of it. I did not. I was like, well, what actually is it? And it's the point is a safe place to show your emotions, a safe place, like Z says, to unmask, to be vulnerable, to be raw, unfiltered. Like, when you sit on your own and you feel everything and you're letting it all out, it's having the ability to do that with that person in your space and holding that space for each other. And I think when you find someone that you can connect with on a sexual level, on a romantical level, on a soul level, and then on an emotional safety level, wow, you have got a lot of lottery there, and it is worth fighting for,
Right.
because as long as it's obviously healthy, which it should be if it got all them boxes ticked. But it is worth putting in the effort, because nothing is going to be perfect. Nothing is ever just going to be ready made. There you go, there's a present ready made for you there. It's
Yep.
not how it works. You have to be working on yourself, which in turn means working on the relationship, because you're showing up as better versions of yourself for each other. So I think, to answer the question in a small way, what does it look like to listen without preparing a defense? Emotional safety in the nervous system is connected in terms of, if you are the person that is reactive, that when someone's coming to you and you think they're attacking you, remind yourself before you speak or respond that they're not saying this is your fault. They're not saying you are to blame for everything. They're not saying that this is all over and you're the worst person in the world. They're trying to connect to repair. That's their way of repairing and rebuilding, is to communicate and to say, oh, this really hurt when this happened. And I'd love it if we could change this. And I'd love it if next time this happened, we could approach it in this way. And like, that's them intending to repair and fix and work and build a better thing. So if someone's coming to you with their emotions and you are one that's usually like, well, I can't do this too much. Also, I know that sometimes that comes from not having that yourself. I get that. I get that if you never had that as a child, you never experienced anyone holding emotional space for you. So how are you expected to do that for someone else? And especially in a masculine energy, if there is a lot of like, sometimes the feminine energy is more emotional. And so there's that need to like kind of lean on the masculine a little bit more in them ways, which will have other roles reversed in the other aspect. But in that emotional sense, sometimes the masculine is asked to be more of an anchor and more of a grounding force for the emotional fluctuation of the feminine energy. And that can be really difficult for a masculine energy that never had any emotional safety, specifically from their fathers and their representation of men, because they don't have the blueprint of what it feels like inside for their own inner child. So they're being asked to do it for someone else whilst their own inner child is screaming for them to do it for themselves, you know? And so it's like a real difficult dance for them to do. And I do honor that. And I do have acknowledgement for that, that if they had absent fathers or, you know, toxic, unhealthy representations of the masculine, they're not going to have the blueprint. So they are literally learning it right now. But so are we all learning other blueprints. And so there's no reason why we can't all intend to learn this together. And that then flips to the person that's trying to communicate. And it's important you are aware of how you're trying to communicate, the ways in which you bring it up, when you bring it up. Is it in the middle of an argument? Is it in, do they feel like you only bring it up when you're having nice times because that's the only time you feel safe enough to do that, you know? And so all these different things are all a part of the way that it's received. And that's in no way blaming like the victim, like you can't share your feelings. No, I'm not saying that. It's just make sure it's not come in as, well, you did this and you did that, and like, oh, I felt really, you know. And it's like the words, the terminology, the expression is important. I have to own this because I, you know, do get into that sometimes where my old program is to be upset and hurt, and then one thing sets me off and then all the other things come out that I've not spoken about because it didn't feel safe to do so, and then it's like an explosion of everything, and then that is an attack, not intentionally, but it is, you know. And so it is really breaking it down of what does it look like in terms of, you've got to look at what does that look like for you to express it? What does it look like to be received? So that's a deep question.
That's a really deep question. It's taken me many layers to get to that point. If we're talking specifically about the question itself, I've broken it down in my own parts, which would be if someone is coming at me and I'm feeling like, and for me, I don't usually do the defense thing. I will shut down and then I will avoid. That has been my previous patterns, right? I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah,
Uh,
I get
so
it.
if I'm in that space and someone is like coming at me, because it used to be with my programming, like anybody saying anything was an attack.
Yeah, I get that.
That's how
Yeah.
my body really perceived it. And so now it's a pause. Someone's going to come to me, I'm going to pause. If I notice that my body is having an interaction and creating a meaning out of what they're saying, then
Yeah.
I'm going to need to create safety in myself. And usually I'm telling my body, okay, we're going to pause here just for a minute. Sometimes I need to tell them that I need to pause for a second. I can't respond right at the moment. My body's activated. Um,
Mhm.
take a step back. If I do pause and I'm feeling like I don't have meaning I'm not adding meaning to it, I'm okay to listen. I'm not going to say anything until they're finished with what they're expressing on the table.
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to wait until they're done. And this is a big process that I've had to work with communication and allowing my body to actually sit through that uncomfortability while someone is
Yeah.
speaking, because it doesn't mean it's about me. My body made it about me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I
And
get
then,
that.
yeah, it's just a big process. And then it's like, okay, I hear that. I appreciate like you expressing yourself. What is it that you need in the space? And I'm not going to put any inflection or anything in there from my part or how I feel about it until they might ask for, well, do you have an expression on this or perspective on this? If not, then I'm just going to listen.
Interesting. That is interesting, though. I'm glad you brought that up because I do, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's a little bit of a masculine energy trait, and I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm just like identifying it because, like, sometimes I'm trying to communicate and then I'm like, do you not have anything to say? Like, anything to add? Like, anything? You know, and it just, sometimes I feel like, and again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but in my perspective, sometimes it's like, I feel not acknowledged simply by the lack of any response. Like, I feel like I'm
Right.
talking to a wall, and I say that sometimes. I'm like, I feel like there's no energetic response at all. And he's like, but I'm just trying to let you speak and let you get it all out. And then, and then I get it, and I'm like, oh, okay. But for me, it's like, it feels like no energetic reciprocity. I can never say that word. You know what I mean? The
Reciprocity.
reciprocation.
We got it.
You know, it feels like really being met blank and like kind of shut down. And I've said that, like sometimes even just like you said, I hear that, you know, da da da. I hear that, you know, what do you need? That would be more than valid. But sometimes that, like you said, that waiting period, it makes me feel so uneasy because I'm like, oh, how have they taken this? Like,
Oh, that's
yeah, like that longing period makes me feel really anxious, and so that's really interesting that you brought that up. That I was really
I
interested,
think this
but
is
it was
funny
good.
now because
It was good to see your perspective, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. Like, yeah,
because from my experience, I will do both. I have both components in me. I will venture from side to side. But if I'm wanting to listen and like I know from how I'm feeling into you that you have more of a feminine perspective, I'm gonna be in the balance point. That's usually how my body wants to work.
yeah, yeah.
Definitely been in a space where I've listened and then I've talked and they're like, "Excuse me."
Yes. No.
No, no,
Why,
no, no. And I'm like,
why
I'm
is it
sorry, I'm not
about
gonna
you
thank
all of a
you.
sudden? Like, yeah. Again, another trait where I'm like, why is it that you only bring up what you feel when I bring up what I feel? You know, like, why is this a thing? So that is a thing. But again, I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes the masculine struggles to initiate them emotional conversations and that emotional vulnerability of, hey, I felt a type of way about this. And so that doesn't really get mentioned until I feel a type of way about this and I bring it up and then it's, oh, well, I did too. Well, where was that energy earlier? And again, it's the communication thing, the lack of communication. Again, it's the lack of being able to feel safe with each other. And that's not just like the feminine to the man, because that's the perspective I'm coming from, but as much as like we have different roles as men and women and masculine and feminine and whatever relationships we're in, we all have different roles in terms, but both people need to feel safe. And
Absolutely.
that, and even like from the masculine to feminine, there needs to be a degree of safety to be able to say, hey, I did feel a type of way about this. And that may be harder because there is way less of a blueprint for masculine energy to communicate their emotions than feminine energy. And so, like, even initiating that is really difficult. But I guess that's also both people responsible to initiate nights or times or moments of sharing, intentional sharing moments of how do you feel about this? How do you feel about this? What needs do you have? What needs do you have? What desires and thoughts and how could I be showing up more for you? And, then conversations and communications need to be had at least like twice a month, so that you're having these check-ins and knowing that that creates that space so that the masculine energy doesn't need to initiate out of random uncomfortableness and doesn't know how, and then it gets built up, and then the feminine energy doesn't need to overload it all at one time. If it's actually space is created for that, then that should avoid the explosion type form of communication.
Right, right. And I think that just takes a while to figure out what your particular style is with your partner because not everybody's going to be the same and work the same way. With my partner, she and I switch roles a lot, and I don't even like to call it roles. I don't in my head. That's
I
not.
know I don't like that word either. It's
I
just
don't
I
usually
struggle
play
to
that
find like a
way.
good word.
I can tell when I'm more in my feminine versus masculine, and how that interacts. And I'm very vulnerable all the time with her. It comes up
Yeah.
a lot. And the main thing is I don't let anything wait. If something's coming up, it's right on the table to her. I speak it out. The first time I
Yeah.
feel for it, it could be very uncomfortable. But the thing is with her, she makes it very safe for me to do that and vice versa.
Which is really beautiful. And I hope I know that's where we're going to be shifting into for future relationships. And it is so important that we are allowing our nervous system to get used to that. Again, whether you are single and going into a relationship, whether you're in a relationship where you've already got that and you haven't had it in the past, or whether you are in a relationship that has evolved through different stages like mine and you're in a different chapter and you're letting go of the old. It's the same kind of concept for all of us, just in different ways that we're navigating it. And like you said, the word roles does come with energy charge because it's like expected energy. And
Yeah.
I think that's why it's not the right word because it's more of a natural flow. And I think the only difference is like, I'm a very feel it, speak it kind of gal. But when you have kids and babies, it does shift that ability to just like have them deep conversations right there, right then, because like, everyone's screaming, everyone's crying, everyone needs feeding, there's all these human needs that come up. And that's why I think a lot of relationships in the first few years of parenthood don't make it because every form of connection and communication that you had before having kids does shift and change. Like you as people change, you as a relationship changes, everything changes. And so again, it's even more so important that if you are in them stages of new parenthood, to initiate the time, whether that's after they are in bed and that night changes every day of the week because they didn't go to bed on time and you plan it for tomorrow and the night after. Keep doing that because it's important, and it is really important that you maintain communication, clear form communication and vulnerability to maintain that emotional safety with each other, because more than ever when you have kids, you're going to be going into resentment a lot of the time because there's different shifts that happen for different versions. And a lot of the time as a woman, your body, mind and soul changes. So you experience a lot of the physical changes and there's a big resentment for that. And so there's so much that needs to be spoken about that's not. And so I really think not being afraid, not being afraid of if they reject you constantly and time and you're working and you try to connect and you're trying to do all this and it's being met with constant rejection and not niceness, then that's not your person. And so, unfortunately, sometimes there is a line we've got to draw with how much you do give to something and how much of you give to something and how much you sacrifice yourself to make something work. Like you can't just give away every part of you to make something work out of the ideology that one day it'll be perfect, because nothing's going to be perfect if you're not being you, you
Exactly.
know.
I
I
want to
think
say
that's
like,
very important.
yeah, like the safest space for me is how messy can I be in this? Right? How messy can I
Yeah.
feel? How imperfect can I feel and be myself in the space? And that with her is it's a really beautiful dance that we have. And we came together, I want to say after 5 years of a really deep, deep, deep friendship. And also starting to talk about this new layer of relationship that's coming in sovereignty. So we've been talking about it for a good period, a long time of what are we facing in this as sovereign players in the game that's coming in a collective space. How are we going to work that? What does that look like? So I want to say that it's a really beautiful process to have that because I've never had that platform at all. Like my
Yeah.
body has never had that. I've seen it, like I've experienced it in journeys in my own work that I've done, but heading to a space where that's in a physical reality is a whole different base because then my body had to walk through the whole processes of this is not safe. We will not do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It felt really unsafe for a good period of time and still have unsafety in there because of past situations that it's been through that's it's reprogramming. So
hmm
um,
Mm.
she's given me a whole
It's
different,
really important.
yeah, yeah, it's huge.
And it's valid. I think that's what I wanted to say, valid, because the pain you've been through, your body had to, all of us, not just you specifically,
Everybody.
Z, but yeah, you specifically, it's valid because what we've been through, our bodies needed to be safe. And
Yep.
what we created to be safe kept us safe through times where we might have not been safe if we didn't have them responses. And as much as I've been in a relationship for 15 years, and I have a lovely dad, very caring, loving, kind dad. I have a very strange relationship with the masculine energy. It's a very fear-based,
Yep.
defensive, like, whoa, no. Any man that's not, I don't know, and I'm not safe emotionally with, and this sounds really bad, but I own it, I don't mind. I have a fear-based response to it, and I have a very panic-based, don't approach me kind of vibe. And it might be the area, might be my social conditioning, might be my experiences as a human. I'm not sure. Might be past life trauma, might be a bit of everything sprinkled in the middle. But it's definitely been a thing I've been working through for a long time is releasing my fear, anger. I had a lot of like ancestral rage as a woman. It felt like deep rage in my bones that I let go on a medicine ceremony a few years ago, which was really beautifully sad but beautiful. And yeah, so I think the whole point of today's video is a lot of it was about communication. And obviously, we did target it towards relationships, but it can apply to a lot of things we've spoken about in
Yep.
life, with yourself, with your family, with your friends, with all that new relationships as you're moving on in life. And I would really love to continue exploring this with you, Z, in the next video. And we've got some
Absolutely.
more questions that we didn't answer. We've got quite a few that we can go through next week. And I really would love to start exploring the concept of how we show up in our sexual energy, how we show up in our sexuality, and how that like looks and manifests from our trauma responses, from our inner child experiences, from our past life experiences, and like just the ways that that's showing up. I just don't think it's spoken about a lot because it's like this taboo thing, which was done on purpose in the world to suppress that magic life force that resides within our solar plexus and sacral chakra. So, we've got some fiery energy that lives in this space. And I think, as much as we've spoke a lot about the Kundalini activation, I think this is different. It's exploring more of a kind of a psychological experience. Yeah, a little bit different, which we both got the experience in. I've done the criminology degree. You did psychology in some form.
Psychology and
Yeah.
biology.
I was thinking, I'm sure you did an ology. I'm sure we're on ologies
Yep,
over here.
chronologies.
We're an ologists over here. So yeah, we've got that psychology and critical thinking kind of approach. And I think right now it just feels like it's interesting to dive into. It's interesting to dive into this new. Everything is new. We have never been through an awakening in the human body and ascended in the human body. Like that shit is fucking cool. Let's just put it out there. That is like really cool. What a time to be alive. What a wild ride. Let's just say it's very difficult to navigate in the human body day to day. However, how cool. How cool that we are getting to experience this and getting to live through this. Like this is never happened in the history of humanity of anything. And we are setting the blueprint for that. And I think that is some really, really, really cool stuff. So I think it is time to just talk about things a little bit more raw. That's my pledge to you for 2026 for anyone that's listening. I'm going to show up more raw, more unfiltered. So you're going to be getting a little bit more of the craziness in between. And yeah, I want to connect to more people. So please do follow us on YouTube. We are now on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts. So there is a few episodes live on there. So if you do want to check us out, we are on all them platforms under the Power of Energy series. So you can listen to us while you're out and about on the go, listen to our beautiful voices. But yeah, it truly is. It's an honor to connect with you guys at this time. And I really do just want to share more realness because I don't think there's a lot of realness online. So that's my pledge to be here, to be real, and to keep doing what we do best and spread a bit of love, light, and a bit of magic in between.
I'm like, that's always going to be mine. So I'll be real with you all the time, guys, as best
Yeah.
as my ability until I shift into the next version, which might be.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
also too,
Next.
we will go over energetic stuff, soul stuff, quantum stuff
Oh,
as
of course.
it
Of course.
rises too. It's all one integration, everybody.
I think that's part of the realness because for
Yeah,
us, life is not life without the lifing of the spiritual realms, and that's what makes it all weird and wonderful for us. It's all the things in between, and yeah, embodiment was my word for this year, and so I think
mine
I'm
too.
stepping into it. I'm stepping into the embodiment of fullness. So if you're here for it, follow along.
Yeah, embodiment was my word too, and communication was second, which is why I've got my blueprint out for another immersive space for people to be able to understand how to communicate with each other. So I'm excited about that coming later this year. Woo!
Yes, girl, you've got some good things coming out. We have got some really exciting things coming. Zia's got some
Yeah,
really, she's been working hard on this. She's been up
real
in the
hard.
mountains. Oh, girl, she's been like, I'm gonna say, working hard, that's probably not the right words because we don't believe in that concept, but she's been giving her all her energy,
Yeah.
all of the physical, everything. And this has got like years worth of codes and activations written into it. So honestly, if you are just looking for something to boom, boom, and you can't make the physical events, you can't meet up, you can't connect on the retreats. This is something that you need to be doing because honestly, it's going to change your life. And that goes for anything Z does, but specifically this, I know how much she's been putting into it. So I do think you guys should go check that out and call that into your existence. And if you are interested, go on. Sorry, Del, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say embodiment. That's really what this process was made for, was for this year to come into that. I mean, it's also very self-led. So it's really working
Yeah.
your body in a way that you get to really empower yourself and come into safety, but also realize that we can hold all of these emotions and experiences so we have capacity to do what we want to do.
Yep. And what a gift. what a gift to be able to just package that all up and bring us it in a gift, you know? But
Absolutely.
yeah, it's pretty perfect, pretty awesome. And so if you are interested in receiving any of that, please do go check out these stuff. It will be below, and all the information is below. And if you are interested in seeing us in person, doing some magical work, you know that we are running a retreat in Spain this year in either June or July. We're confirming all the details this month. So the tickets will be on sale by the end of this month. So if you are interested in joining us, there is very, very limited places and they do sell fast. There is around 10, maybe 12 places, depending on which villa we're going for. So there is very, very limited spaces. And like I said, they do go fast. So if you are interested, you want to get on the wait list, please do drop an email to the email below and we can make sure you are one of the first people that get first picks. So yeah, I'm excited to do some activational work and for you to bring all that magic to over to all of us and create this magical serenity and surrendering. That's what we're going to be doing. 2026 is the year of embodiment, and serenity and surrendering is how we're going to do it. So we hope to see you there, guys.
Absolutely. I'm excited for it. Woo.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you,
thank you so
Dee.
much, girl. Yeah.
Love you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.